Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the ISO Review Podcast, a production of Simplify ISO. The ISO Review Podcast shares the latest international standards development and is your resource for getting the most out of your management systems. I'm Howard Fox, business coach and host of the Success Insight Podcast, and I'm here with ISO management system professional Jim Moran, celebrating his 33rd year delivering ISO support. Now, today we're going to continue our conversation from our last episode by going deeper into the topic of positive intention in the workplace. It is our great pleasure to introduce you to Michael Hart, who is our guest today. Mike is the founder and CEO of Human. He has over 40 years of experience in quality management and organizational excellence. Michael, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Howard. Pleasure to be here.
Now, I hope I did the introduction justice for you, but I always feel that it's the best to have my guests start to share their story. And I know you and Jim go back for a while now, and I'm really excited that you're here with us and talking more about this very important topic of positive intention in the workplace. So, Jim, take it away.
Thanks, Howard. As far as going back, Bonnie and I and the family moved to Ottawa in 2004. I typed in ISO 9001 into Google, and Mike's name came up. We had a coffee, and the rest, as they say, is history.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it is. So, as you said, Howard, we're continuing on from our discussion last time, and Mike, I thought it'd be a good idea if we got started with you giving us a little bit of history of where and how this approach came to be.
Well, thanks, Jim. I would say there's kind of two things I think that we may be talking about today pertaining to positive intention in the workplace. And one of them is my introduction to a philosophy and methodology called Appreciative Inquiry, very, very early in the 21st century. And the other one is some further studies that I took, and a thesis, my master's thesis, on how actually positive intention may possibly give a little bit of a push. It's almost like the universe will push you in the direction that you're projecting. And that study was actually based on not only the latest sciences, the quantum sciences, but also sociology and current studies being done to current management systems. So it's very, very interesting that, number one, we talk about positive intention because it takes us in the direction we want to go anyway, a good direction, but there may be the possibility that somebody is behind us giving us a gentle little push.
Mm-hmm. And as you and I know, in the world of management systems, we've both been attached to for so many years, that anything that can help people get to where they want to go faster and more effectively has got to be a good thing. And there's so many opportunities in the universe to make use of positive energy. And of course, the standard doesn't say any language like that at all. But people like you who are willing to make a really in-depth inquiry into the possibilities certainly helps the whole world of management systems. That's for sure.
So, guys, I've got a question. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Michael, when you first got interested in the positive intention, was this like an aha moment for you? Because, again, you've got 40 some years of experience in quality management and operational excellence. Was there like just a light bulb went off, or how did you begin to make that connection?
Well, actually, that's a good question, Howard. Big light bulb went off.
Okay.
And I'm sure that you've had aha moments, and Jim, you've had aha moments. It's moments that you're sitting there and you're listening to something or looking at something, and all of a sudden it's almost like a little section in the back of your brain kind of go plung, aha, and you start thinking in a completely different direction.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
I think that's probably what happened to me when I actually first took Appreciative Inquiry as a presentation to the quality community. I think as early as somewhere around 2002, 2004.
Okay.
They were definitely not used to it. And I'm hoping there were a lot of aha moments out there in the crowd as well.
Okay. Very good.
Thanks, Mike. Can you tell us a little bit about the Vermont hospital exercise you did? The
Uh,
healthcare study? Yeah.
yeah, I that was actually also back in the first decade of the 21st century. And I'm glad you brought that one up, Jim. The reason I think that that's significant is it gave me a couple of instances where I could actually see appreciative inquiry at work. I was part of a team and we were at a Vermont medical center, which had some different, not only a hospital, but some other locations as well. And we were teaching the staff continual improvement.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
it was not only appreciative inquiry, but it was a whole bunch of other different things like statistics and probability and blah, blah, blah. The traditional PDCA wheel. But the appreciative inquiry part, one of the components of it is called an opportunity tree. And Jim, you and I have discussed this. It's sort of like the positive opposite to the Ishikawa diagram, the cause and effect diagram,
Mhm.
where with the cause and effect diagram, you have an effect and it's a problem.
Mhm.
But with the opportunity tree, you have something that you want to achieve. And so the group creates a profound statement using
Mhm.
very energetic, positive words of what it is they want to achieve. They're doing the same thing. They're brainstorming and coming in with causes and effects, but they're doing it in a completely different way. And this one woman, after that particular session in training, this one woman came up to us and said, "Oh, what a difference."
Mhm. Mhm.
She says, I remember doing problem solving and cause and effect, and it's just so depressing. And this was just uplifting.
Well, you're going to release a lot more energy in all the participants when it's uplifting instead of something where somebody's saying, "Oh my God, another fishbone. I think I'm going to go crazy."
I would imagine you just kind of shut down.
Yeah. And
Now,
it's hard for root cause analysis teams to keep away from making it look like you're blaming somebody. I always teach my clients to ask the question, what's the weakness in our system that allowed this to happen instead of asking who screwed up? But this, when I took your workshop, this opened up a whole new world for me in terms of positivity as well. And I think you did another project with the Trinidad and Tobago government in one of their ministries, didn't you?
yes, I did. So before we go to that, though, I just want to bring up that other thing that I saw when I
Oh,
was when we were doing the group sessions at the Vermont Hospital, and that is the start of appreciative inquiry. Of course, with David Cooperwriter was
mhm.
when he was a co-op student, and he was hired by this. Well, whether they pay them or not, I'm not sure. But anyway, he was told, "I want you to go out there and see what you can do to improve production."
Mhm.
And so it's a little bit vague, but he did. He went out. A little while later, his manager came along and said, "I don't know what you're doing, but keep it up because production is up." He said, "I didn't do anything. All I did was ask people to give me stories of when, things were great or when things were working really, really well."
Hmm.
And that was the birth, supposedly, of appreciative inquiry. Now, when we were at this hospital, and we're not only teaching, but we're actually taking people through continual improvement projects.
Mhm.
So I was in the last part of the process of patients going through the hospital and talking to that department that also surveyed customers to see patients to see how well they did, the hospital did, and everything like that. And she told me the same story. She said, I took the advice. I went out there and I asked people about what stories about when things were really, really good, when things were working really, really well. Just think about positive stories. And that's all we did.
Hmm.
And the survey results with customers started to go up. So anyway, I just thought I'd end off the Vermont hospital story with that. I thought it was very significant.
And did you see the same thing when you were working with the Trinidad and Tobago ministry?
Well, with the Trinidad and Tobago ministry, it was a little bit different because I'd gotten a call one day by this organization that had a team that was going down to help the ministry improve, completely change,
Hmm.
like big time change. And they had one contractor or one consultant that had opted out at the last minute. So they were looking for a pinch hitter. What they were looking for was somebody to go in and do process reengineering on the ministry's key
Oh,
processes.
yep.
But then at the end of the call, the guy said, but try not to cause too much disruption because, there's change going to be happening all over the place. I don't make too much noise. So I thought process reengineering, that's pretty well blowing a process up and starting it over again. That's what made me think about using appreciative inquiry instead, or kind of combining the two of them together. So that's how that went along. So it was very, very different. I used the traditional appreciative inquiry steps to get to the place where each of the groups had a statement for their opportunity tree to help them get moving on what their process would look like using profound words, profound positive words. What I found was this, and there were all sorts of examples of this. The things that they were doing, the statements that they were creating were profound, and they caused mediocre processes to become profound. So, for example, I'm sure both of you in our audience is all aware of employee performance appraisals.
Yes.
Oh my God, ho hum, ho hum. I mean, both for supervisors and employees themselves. And to tell you the truth, people don't really like going to performance appraisals. So I was just looking at my notes to see what they had come up with, this group that was looking into employee performance appraisals. And their statement was a transformational topic was helping people to be the best that they could be.
Mhm.
That completely changed everything. As I watched this group define the causes of that and the effects of that in their opportunity tree, and then place it on to rebuilding their processes, it was profound because they weren't looking at let's review this employee's performance to see if they're any good, to see if they should have a raise at all. Had nothing to do with that. It had everything on how can we help this employee be the best that they could be.
Hmm. And you've used all these ideas and put them all together in one of your own inventions. I think you refer to it as sibling, don't you?
Yes. Yeah. After I got back from that trip, I thought this was so amazing that I'm going to have to make it into a methodology myself. So
Hmm.
I took all of the steps and I used the flavor of appreciative inquiry. I said it was a combination of process reengineering and appreciative inquiry, but I called it sibling because as far as Lean Six Sigma,
Hmm.
Lean is there to remove as much waste as possible.
Hmm.
Six Sigma is there to remove as much variation as possible. And so, why would you go with a process, a mediocre process, to remove all the waste and all the variation? All you're going to have in the end is a waste free, variation free, mediocre process. So I called this sibling because it's the smaller sibling of both Lean and Six Sigma.
And we know how complicated, well, at least Six Sigma, we know it can be a remarkably complicated series of activities. Lean is still a challenge because sometimes people are married to their processes and have a personal interest in them and are willing to give up and aren't willing to let go of it to improve it. And the other thing that I thought of when you were discussing this is that you can use your sibling approach probably in just about any kind of size of organization. And I hear a lot of complaints from the larger companies that actually have 2 or 3 people assigned to managing the system, that the traditional 7 tools that ASQ talks about for root cause analysis, a lot of them are pretty complicated. And the idea of starting, as you said, starting with the best a person can be, starting with the best a process could be, it can really make a difference. The other thing too, you mentioned about taking out the excess and then reducing variation and having a mediocre, still ending up with a mediocre process. This observation of yours is exactly why I tell people in the internal auditor training, I say literally, I say to them, do not look to see if people are following the procedure because of what you just said. If the procedure is mediocre, even if they're following it, the company thinks, well, that's great. People are following the procedure, but we extend it to say, don't just find out if they're following the procedure. Find out if the procedure is getting the result you want. So number one, are we getting the result? Number two, are we managing risks? And number three, how can we improve? You still have to gather evidence that it is getting something, but it changes the focus away from, are you following the procedure, to how can we make this better? And so wherever it's a philosophy, it sometimes takes really, really good leadership to get the philosophy. You might even call it culture. And that's where leaders need to take control or take responsibility, as in clause 5.1.1 of ISO 9001A, take the accountability for the effectiveness of the management system. And this gives them a tool they can be thinking about while they're doing all their leadership duties. And of course, leaders lead by example, whether they want to or not. You mentioned also about appreciative inquiry being sort of a philosophy to create even methodologies based on focusing on a positive future state. Sorry. Besides, there's this saying, Ewell Gibbons, I think he coined it, you are what you eat. Some other quotes, loud too. Watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes destiny. And I can see how well that fits so beautifully into this, how your method supports this thought and strengthens the thought too. So I guess I've known you throughout the whole development of your master's thesis. Can you tell us a little bit about it and how it fits into David Copperwriter's own thesis that culminated with an appreciative inquiry?
Sure. So first off, appreciative inquiry, I did mention that it is a philosophy and a methodology. Because the fact is that there are other people that have used appreciative inquiry to create other methodologies. And I remember one, instead of the normal strategic planning SWOT,
Yeah.
strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. There's another one that's based on appreciative inquiry that's called SOAR. And so it's strengths, opportunities, but there are a couple other words there that are positive rather than looking at the negative side. But, and the thing is, when I was getting involved with appreciative inquiry, one of the things that was just itching me in the back of the head was, how is this happening? And how can I make it happen even more? Because one of the problems when I looked into appreciative inquiry a little bit further was you can't just put it in and walk away.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
have to continue, because if you don't, then it will, the results, the fantastic results will just kind of settle down. So that caused me to think around 2000, in the later 2000s, I was taking my master's in business with a focus on total quality management. And the time came around for the thesis subject.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could have, with 30 odd years of experience at that time in quality management, I could have done a whole bunch of different things easily. But I thought, I really, really want to continue on this trek to find out what is it that's causing uh, these phenomenal effects with the positive speak, the positive visioning. Is it just physical, or does it tie into what the quantum physics, the quantum sciences were telling us? Very spooky sciences, by the way. Okay.
Well,
I'm gonna,
whoa.
I'm
Yes.
gonna say woo woo, yes.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to go down that road. I was taking a chance, because if I failed my thesis, of course, probably I would fail the whole MBA. But once I went on that journey, the results were astounding. It was
Mm-hmm.
just an amazing journey. So what I did was I started off connecting philosophy, which is the original physics,
Mm-hmm.
to the quantum physics, to sociology, and to business methodologies. Not only those business methodologies coming from uh, the quality side, but also business methodologies coming from the human resources side. Appreciative inquiry, for example, is a business methodology, but it's coming from the human resources side into the center. That's why all of my quality colleagues in the early 2000s didn't recognize it when I presented it at an ASQ meeting.
Mm-hmm. What the word that pops into my mind is holistic.
Yes, very, very holistic.
Yeah, it's a neat, it is a neat linking of everything, and everything's connected anyway. But this helps us, or organizations at least, use the existing pieces they have in place to actually, I think you used in one of your pieces, to skyrocket improvement.
Yes.
And you've just explained as well how not only does it skyrocket improvement effectiveness and probably even perhaps make it quicker, but it also addresses the issue you brought up earlier about everybody's excited, and then over time it just kind of dwindles away. And this, the fact that you're tying all these pieces together definitely puts this approach really up somewhere where we can make good use of it, and organizations can really benefit from it. In fact, I've got some software, and I've got a new program going called Do It Yourself ISO 9001, where we build a management system with me a little bit, but using AI mainly. And since day one, we've had an automated corrective action tool in place, and it does the same things. It covers all the issues that Clause 10.2 does in all the standards. But I think after our exercise together, we're going to, or the exercise, the workshop I did with you, I'm going to change the form and see, and put the very first thing to be, what do you want the future state to be? Or some words to that effect. And it even reminds me Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think the number one thing is start with the end in mind. So there's just tons of parts of our lives and our world that get or encourage people to look at how do you really want this to be. I'm sure every exercise program, every weight loss program, everything that we do has some component of trying to imagine how you want it to be. And you must have found that with all the British Airways. example you used in the workshop was incredible. That's what changed my life, was seeing those two slides together. Maybe you could tell our listeners a little bit about that.
Okay. Yeah. The big difference in the British Airways example was to show that with the traditional problem solving methodology, you looked at a particular problem.
Hmm.
And what the future state of that was to bring it back to where you were before, necessarily to make it better, just to correct it, to bring it back to where you were before. So the British Airways example was showing a fellow sitting on, what do you call it, turnstile, the luggage turnstile, looking very forlorn
Yeah,
because he had
begging.
just lost his luggage. And
Yeah.
so what on the traditional state, we would look, how to solve the problem of lost luggage.
Hmm.
But then, and I don't have the thing in front of me, but they used again the whole idea of a transformational topic.
Hmm. Hmm.
And can you remember the name of the transformational topic when they decided to go positive? It
Uh,
was
I believe it was,
creating.
yep, the ultimate customer experience.
Yes. So all of a sudden, it was no longer about this little problem of, well, it's not a little problem, but just a singular problem of lost luggage. It was a system that they wanted to look at overall that caused their customers to walk out the door feeling great. And that's more than just lost luggage. So it goes from just correcting the problem back to where you were before to bringing everything, the whole system, moving the whole system further in the direction that you wanted.
That at that point didn't register with me in the workshop, but it's brilliant because as the words you just used, doing corrective action, all you're doing is getting back to where you were before. And by looking at this profound or the transformational question, how can we create the ultimate customer experience? Now you're shifting it to the whole team looking at ways to do other things, not just get the bags there. And believe me, they've done in my lifetime tremendous improvements in tracking luggage. We have two air employees, air uh, travel employees, and believe it or not, from the time you drop the bag off at the counter, it's tracked 7 times. This is one airline anyway, because they've all got scanners now and all that kind of stuff. So the bags often don't get lost. And if you just focus on that one situation, then of course there's not as much to be gained in terms of improvement. There was something you mentioned recollect about some kind of violent crime reduction story. Do you think you could
Oh, yeah.
remind me of that one?
That was a study that I cited in my thesis. And so whenever you're doing something like a thesis, you're expected to make a statement, or this is my theory, and do some studies yourself, but you're also expected to bring in studies from elsewhere. And this particular one was very interesting because the whole thing behind the thesis was, is more happening than just our classical physics that we know of in the world? Is whenever we go in that direction and we create a big, profound, positive push in that direction, are we getting actually more the stronger we do it? So one of the studies that I used for the secondary studies was this group of, let's take a look here. It was a group of 4,000 practitioners in transcendental meditation, TM, that was popular in the 60s. They assembled in Washington to see if they couldn't lower an annual violent crime cycle that would just peak around that time in the summer in Washington. And so the funny thing was, it not only were they successful in statistically reducing like very visually and statistically reducing the violent crime. But what was interesting was people didn't just assemble and they were all there. They came and then they started, and then more people came and more people came and more people came. The more people, as the number of people doing the transcendental meditation arrived, the further down the curve,
Wow.
the violent crime was reduced.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's again an example of how everything is energy, and we're all connected. And it just kind of brings the whole exercise today home. So thanks so much, Michael, for joining us. And we'll definitely see what we can do to follow on with this. Maybe, and maybe not the next podcast, but there's a lot to really explore here, especially for our listeners who actually either manage or are connected to their management systems at their organization, and see what maybe we can even get some comments back about how maybe they have some luck with using it. And we'll make sure we have connections in the show notes. So if anybody wants to pursue this further with you, they'll be able to get in touch. I see Howard nodding his head. Is there any?
I love this topic, and it again, as a coach, it totally resonates with me, and I'm actually very interested in, and if you're open to it, Michael, I would love to have you back on the show, and really talk also more about some of the impact that this philosophy, this approach has been having on your customers. And because this we're so used to focusing on the negative, what broke and why did it break? And again, it gets back to your lean and in Six Sigma. We're trying to figure out what that smoke, for the sake of a better analogy, smoking gun was. But this idea that we can, let's focus on what we really want to see. We want that, like your BA example, the customer experience, the ultimate customer experience. And I think it'd be fascinating to hear about the impact that this approach is having on some of your customers today. And by the way, and I also appreciate that you can't just deliver on this approach in a workshop or you're at a client engagement, but you constantly have to nurture the recipe that you introduce for those companies, or else we go back to the way things used to be. So there's that longer term impact that you're also having. I'd love to hear more about some of those stories if you're open to joining us.
I'd be happy to. And I think, Howard, nurturing is a perfect word for that. Listen, guys, it was a pleasure to be on your podcast, Howard and Jim. If ever you invite me back, I'd be more than happy to come.
I think that'd be fantastic. And Jim, that this is your to do. Okay.
Yes.
Now, Michael, we're going to provide a link back to your website at human.ca, and we'll also have a link back to the article you wrote, "Conscious Human Intention in the Workplace," so our listeners can find more information about that as well. So, thank you again for joining us today.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Yes.
Listen, stay in the line real quick. We're gonna do a quick close, and then you, Jim, and I can have a final chat. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, folks. We have just been listening to a very special episode of the ISO Review podcast. Jim and I are very grateful and to have introduced you to Michael Hart. He is the CEO and founder of Human.ca. And what we learned today was the about in positive intention in the workplace, and using this really phenomenal tool, or it's not a tool, a methodology, a philosophy of appreciative inquiry, and how you can use it to create this positive intention in the workplace. Now, as for this episode, it'll be up on our website, isoreviewpodcast.com, in the coming days. Make sure you go out and visit Jim's website at simplifyiso.com. We'll also have the usual backlinks to Jim's LinkedIn and articles, as well as the website. And we're also going to provide links back to the International Management Systems Institute, their website, imsipro.org. And of course, remember, you have access to the 27,001 and 9,001 gap checklist for ISO. As for me, you can find my website at foxcoaching.com. And I'll also have a link back to my LinkedIn profile. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, hopefully you have a fantastic start to your week. And we look forward to having you with us on a future episode of the ISO Review Podcast. Take care now.